think, yeah, that had some influence. Let's ask why it is that we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and your medicine can be doubled tomorrow, and there's nothing that the government can do to stop it. You think it has anything to do with the huge amounts of campaign contributions and lobbying from the fossil fuel industry? Let's talk about climate change. Do you think there is a reason why not one Republican has the guts to recognize that climate change is real and that we need to transform our energy system? Do you think it has anything to do with the Koch brothers and ExxonMobil pouring huge amounts of money into the political system? That is what goes on in America.
That was an example of where Bernie hit the nail on the head when it comes to messaging. When he gets aggressive, when he becomes a fighter, and when he speaks the truth. And that's essentially what he did there. He hit Hillary in her weak spot. And the weak spot is the deregulation of our banking system, of the financial sector. And I love how eloquently and perfectly he worded everything and how aggressively his message was. How aggressive his message was.
Yeah, I think that for much of that first hour, I found her to largely be on the defense on exactly the territory he wants to be on, which doesn't mean that he necessarily expressed every thought perfectly. We've already attacked him on a couple of areas where he could have really driven something home where he didn't. This was, I think, his best line. It got huge applause because it's so obvious to everybody who hasn't been paid millions of dollars by campaign contributors, Wall Street, corporations, and stuff like that. The idea that that doesn't influence you, and that somehow in the history of America, the people giving it haven't realized that yet, and they just keep wasting their money every year. Sheldon Adelson just dishes out a couple dozen $1 million in election cycle.
Fun.
Now, in his case, it is wasted money because he always backs shitty candidates. But largely, the corporations give money because they see returns on it. And that's why very often you see them hedging by giving money to both the Democrats and the Republicans to make sure that regardless of whoever wins, they get what they want. And so it's very easy to just lay it out very clearly with the political experience he has that obviously that's happening. And it's made even easier when Hillary Clinton had just ridiculously spent 10 minutes trying to explain that no, campaign contributions have never affected me, they've never affected anybody. How could you possibly think they could?
Campaign contributions so unaffect the race. That's why Lawrence Lessig was there to make that case. Exactly. Oh, wait, they wouldn't even let him on the debate stage. The guy who was going to make that case, the guy who has over 300,000 Twitter followers just because of that reason, no, they wouldn't have him on. But it has no influence whatsoever. Hillary, by the way, Anna, is so progressive that she gets casual compliments from Henry Kissinger.
Yes.
That was a funny reference too, yeah.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I mean, just her denial of the influence of corporate money shows you that she's not likely to do anything about this issue. The only reason why this issue keeps coming up during these debates is because Bernie Sanders is the person who brought it to everyone's attention. I mean, look, Americans already knew that this type of corruption was happening. Politicians weren't discussing it. Think about the last presidential election, right? During Obama's re-election campaign and everything. Was there a lot of talk about campaign finance reform? None. No.
So what Bernie needs to say, if I can be so bold, is when he looks at her and he says, "You see that? If you don't think campaign finance is a problem, you're not going to try and fix it."
Exactly.
He didn't say that. That's exactly what he said. See, she doesn't think the biggest problem is campaign finance. I'm going to try and change it. She doesn't think it's a problem. She won't change it.
But again, he shies away from attacking
Oh
her.
my God!
And she came into this debate
both
guns blazing, right? And he did everything in his power to avoid attacking her. And again, I commend him for that. But there are appropriate moments to fight back. You can't let her steamroll you. And I feel like there were a number of moments where, for someone who doesn't follow politics, if they're watching it, they're going to think that she's telling the truth and that she's going unchallenged, so it must be the truth. You can't let that happen. Don't allow her deception to be convincing.